Good afternoon, friends. Welcome to another episode of Unbreakable Studios. And here today, we are going into the unbreakable business. And how fun that our conversation today is about security. And I think about breaking and breaking into and all of those things. So I'm excited to dig in today with my guest, Aubriana Luck, with Clover Phoenix Security and Consulting from Austin, Texas. Should I talk about that yet? I will. The only woman-owned security company in the great community of Austin, Texas. But we're going to dig in a little bit and learn a little bit about Aubriana's story. Thank you for joining us here at Unbreakable Studios in Taylor, Texas. Welcome, Aubriana. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I started my business about 2.5 years ago, and I have lived in Austin for about 4.5 years. I'm from Kansas. So I got my bachelor's, my master's in criminal justice. So I've actually been interested in criminal justice since I was 15. So it's been kind of a long-standing interest of mine. And the reason that I actually got into being interested in criminal justice is because whenever I was 15, my mom and I were in a -8-degree snowstorm, and we got a flat tire, and 2 police officers helped us to change the tire.
Wow.
So ever since then, I was always just, I wanted to be a police officer before, and I kind of changed directions a few times or whatever. But at the end of the day, here I am with the security business, being able to help people feel protected.
I love that. Those of us in Texas, we can't even fathom -8 degrees. But I also lived in Kansas for a little while, and that weather is no joke.
Exactly.
Wow. So, it's so fun when I get a chance to talk to business owners and people that are purpose driven, and they see this thread happen throughout their lives that have really led them to the place that they're at today. And we're going to talk a lot about that, about why it is that you chose security. And so let's just start with, okay, it is Austin, Texas. It is a very awesome, thriving city, lots of incredible things happening. And we're also in a really interesting time and place where we're seeing a rise in violence, and we're seeing a rise in just all kinds of break-ins, breakthroughs, all of those types of things. So tell me why you're so passionate to be exactly where you're at right now.
I would say that, I've always been a really ambitious person, and I've always just kind of wanted to go my own way and do my own thing. And so something that I've always wanted to do is to have my own business. And I think that, with the support of my uncle who inspired me, I was able to bring this to life. But what actually brought me to security was I had met this friend whenever I was getting an oil change one time, and I was looking for a job. And so what had happened was we were talking for maybe 15 minutes or something, and at the end of the conversation, I had asked him about if where he was working, because it was a similar field, but it was different. I'd asked him if they were hiring, and so he said no, but had I ever considered security? And so I was like, no, but I'm interested. And so he got me in contact with his manager and got me an interview, and so I was able to get hired on as a security guard, and that kind of begun my journey. And it made me really passionate about it because I've always been like a protector to other people, and I really I feel like people have always kind of come to me for support. And so being able to provide that for other people to help people feel safe has been a really important aspect in my life. And it's really driven me in my passions and in my business.
Yeah. When we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, one of the very first needs is security, safety and security, right? We want to make sure that we're okay. And, there's so many people that are out there in the world that are just living life and attempting to live life, right? Doing the things, hopefully not fighting too many snowstorms, at least not in Central Texas. But, we're going through the motions of life, and we need protectors. We need people that have that watchful eye and that heart that really says, hey, I'm going to keep you secure. right? There's so many times I think about the work that that we do when we have a purpose-driven business, and or even just an establishment that is designed to let people have fun. Like everything that we do requires a chance of knowing, all right, something bad could happen. How
Mhm.
do we secure the borders? How do we make sure that we are safe? Outside of the snowstorm, did you ever have any other experiences where maybe you felt violated, or that you felt like your safety was exposed or threatened?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so whenever I was younger, I had something happen, when I was, like, 16, and so that kind of, was after the fact of the snowstorm, so I was already interested in criminal justice, but it was like a different path that I went, and so, coming from that, being able to understand the mindset of people who are feeling unsafe or feeling, violated or something like that,
Mm.
knowing that also brought me inspiration to be able to support others and make sure their sense of safety was more secured.
Yeah, that's a big, big deal. You know, I think again, when I used to work at a bank, and we unfortunately in my 15-year, 16-year tenure, I was involved in three different robberies. And
Oh
you
my
just,
gosh.
during that period of time, two of them happened within 6 months. And they were armed robberies. They were a
Mhm.
big deal. And we felt this tremendous sense of unease. Not only did we feel it, but our clients at the bank felt it. And so it brought us great comfort to know for like 6 to 9 months, we had an armed security guard that was there. And it just brought this sense of everything's going to be okay. And so I know that in your line of work that
Mhm.
you bring a lot of relief to people, that everything is going to be okay. Somebody's watching,
Mhm.
right? Somebody's watching that has my back. So talk to us a little bit about how you got your business established. We know your inspiration came from these life events, and then you had this amazing mentor, your uncle. But tell us about how did you take that leap of faith to actually start the business, and what did that look like?
So whenever I went to visit my uncle, which was in, I think it was in August of 2023. So I went to go visit my uncle, and he was just talking to me about like, being my own business or make shoot, having my own business, being my own boss, and it's just been really supportive along the way. And so that was kind of whenever he was talking to me about it, I was kind of listening, but I also was kind of like, "Oh, I don't know how successful I would be in that."
Sure.
But given the fact that being from Kansas and in Kansas, because I'm from a small town, there's no security anywhere. People are, armed. But as for like being security guards anywhere, it's just non-existent. So being in Austin, such a bigger city, there's just much more opportunities. And so whenever he was talking to me about starting my own business, I was kind of thinking about different areas that I could go in, what I could do. Um, and then there was actually some inspiration to with the fact that there's so many resources available nowadays to be able to start your own business, even if you know nothing about business.
Right.
Because like studying criminal justice, I didn't take any business classes. And so, there's some resources like score.org, and EGBI is a local organization, and SCORE has free business mentors, and EGBI has free business coaches. And there's also Big Austin, and Big Austin, which is local, and EGBI, they actually had like business classes that they provide for very low cost. And so I was able to take those, and that helps you establish your business. And so through kind of all those avenues, I was able to learn. There's so many workshops out there. So in the world today, it makes it really attainable to be able to start a business from the ground up and be successful in it because, there's information. And even just going to the internet, if I have a question, I can search it. And so many people they've been in that same position.
I agree. I think that we are very fortunate. In fact, part of an organization that I've participated in is Texas Women in Business and
Mm,
Austin Business Women. Two of my dear friends run those organizations, and SCORE is actually having a small business conference coming up
mm,
next weekend, and I'll be happy to be there at that event. So I agree with you. I think that there's opportunity, and I think when we can combine hunger passion and opportunity together, right? When that is the recipe that you create to really be part of your business plan and to start, things can just be successful. And you've had a tremendous amount of success based on what you've shared with me. You not only have your own, female security business in a very male dominated world, but you also have a pretty decent size security business. So talk to us a little bit about, where you're at with your business and who you serve currently.
So currently we have about 35 guards. They're
Wow.
contractors. And so there's level 2, which is unarmed. Level 3 is armed. Level 4 is more like personal protection.
Okay.
We have multiple contracts that we're working on. And so some different things that we've worked in the past, like film festivals, music festivals, music venues. We've also done like executive protection. We're currently working on retail and construction contracts. So
Great.
getting those rolling right now, and just giving people the opportunity to be able to, work in a place that they feel comfortable. And one part of my business, being female owned, is that I am trying to have a decent number of female security guards.
Okay.
And a lot of people that are females feel more comfortable being, one, in a smaller business, and two, having a female owner, because there is like some of these bigger companies, they have like, first of all, there's high turnover rate, and also there is also you're kind of a number. They don't know your name, they don't really care about you too much. So one part of my business is that I want to make sure that I know people personally, that they feel like if they need anything, that they can come to me, and that I will be understanding. And so yeah, it's been growing very quickly. More contracts are coming. There's another one that's a gym that's kind of in the works right now.
Wow.
So
That's great.
there's a lot of different places that we're going.
Yeah, we think about just we're living in this very interesting season in the world right now. We're in the middle of a trust recession, and people are guarded. People don't know who they can trust. We see on the news, a shooting is happening over here, or something dangerous is happening over here, and I'm sure that does a whole lot. I know it does in my personal psyche, but it does a whole lot to the stability and our nervous systems, right? Of just, can I feel safe in this place? Can I go to these places? And so I'm sure that a lot of retail establishments, venues, especially entertainment venues, are going to be looking for an opportunity to create that safe space so that they can create a place for consumers to still come, for people to enjoy life and to spend time together. So if somebody had a small business and Aubrey, they were reaching out to you and saying, what's the first step really to securing my parameters? What would be something you would share with them?
I would say that the first step would be to kind of look at the entrances and exits and see kind of, is that, how many of those is there? I'm going to use a business as an example. Is there only 2 entrances? Is there one entrance? Is there like back doors that are insecure? For example, a music venue that we worked at, there's multiple people, they're out, but people were still trying to sneak in a side door. And so making sure that those are guarded is a big thing. Also, with the use of technology, where can you put cameras so that you can keep an eye on different things? But the thing is that a lot of those places, they don't have staffing to have someone watching those cameras or standing at the door.
Right.
So those are some things that are important to look at. And then also look at the crowd. Like, what kind of crowd is coming to your establishment? For example, if for the music venue, for example, there's a lot of people that are maybe underage that are trying to get in. So you have to kind of keep a watchful eye on those kind of things as well, because there's less control on what people are doing. If they're
Sure.
like, say, an 18-year-old and a 21 plus, their maturity level may not be as much as, other people. But anyways, so those are some things that are really important to kind of keep an eye on, is the entrances and the exits.
Yeah.
What is visible. A complex that I was talking to recently, we were talking about security issues and things like that. I went out there and, was helping them figure out where to put security cameras and what to do, what kind of security measures that they could put, like spotlights, for example. like for the gate, making sure that nobody could come in the gate
Right.
without like a password, or like a passcode. And then this was like a far off gate, so it wasn't being heavily monitored. So they were working on also putting a camera out there. But with the homeless population, you never know kind of what's going to happen. And so the
Sure.
problem is that there was a homeless camp that was nearby, and so they were working on how to address those issues because there was a lot of break-ins.
Mm.
So yeah, I think looking at those things, like, then it's easier to kind of get an idea of what security issues might be happening, like
Sure.
lighting and exits and entrances and security footage.
Absolutely. So does your organization also put up security cameras and things of that nature, or are you primarily staffing the actual guards? Or tell us a little bit about what is your outreach altogether?
Yeah, so right now it is more just like physical security, but I'm hoping in the future that we're able to kind of move towards adding security cameras as well. Because like one thing that we do is watching security cameras. Like that's a big part of security is
Sure.
either presence and then also making sure to watch it. So for example, at like different businesses, they have multiple cameras. And so you do walkarounds like
Mm.
every 30 minutes or so. And then in between, you're just watching cameras or greeting people, making sure checking people in for whatever they're doing. So yeah, and then also cybersecurity is kind of a thing that I didn't learn about in school, but I've seen so much about and I'm interested in. So maybe at some point down the road,
Yeah.
that might be a direction that I can add on some cybersecurity, maybe consultants as well or something.
That's brilliant. You think about securing the parameters is there's so much more than just the entrances and the exits, but also, I mean, when we think about a business, that they may need to make sure that their assets are secure, that their accounting is secure. I mean, we think about what's happening in the world of fraud right now. It's just vast and mind blowing, quite frankly, and it's scary, right? So when it comes to, with what you're providing, what would you say with the access to just information? Like I get information, but I'm sure in your world, right, we're in the algorithm world, right? And so I'm sure my algorithms are on coaching and services. I'm sure yours is a lot on security
Mhm.
issues and things like that. But what are you seeing as the biggest trend and the biggest need for security right now?
I would say that unauthorized entry is probably one of the biggest thing because
Okay.
in with all the people that are, walking around day to day, like it's hard to keep track of who's kind of walking around. But there is, like for businesses, for example, like in the past, whenever I worked in like regular full time as a guard, um, only certain people were allowed in the business because the business was kind of like locked down. And so if people were visiting, they had to have like somebody escort them at all times. And so I think that's a big thing. But if you give like retail, for example, I think the biggest problem there would be like theft.
Sure.
Um, I don't think there's like, any kind of unauthorized entry in that unless it was something regarding theft or someone who is maybe acting out, for example.
Sure.
I think in each kind of place that you're, whether it's construction, corporate, residential, or event security, there's each one has its own problems. So it's kind of like addressing what issues each thing has.
Yeah. In our world, I think I shared with you, we connect with a lot of people who are putting on events, people that are doing galas, or I have a great friend that has a beautiful wedding venue and establishment, places that, you're going to have a good amount of gathering, probably a lot of celebrating. But a lot of them are going to be, they're serving alcohol and open, later hours of the day, those types of things. If you were to consult somebody that's hosting an event, what would be some recommendations you might share with them?
I would suggest that, for example, whenever I started, I was really interested in doing like weddings because I had went to a wedding and well, I I've been to multiple weddings, but I had went to a wedding where there was a fight that had broken out. And then I had went to another wedding where, they had a security guard. And so I thought, man, that is such a thing that we don't think of. When you go to a wedding, you don't think about like the fact that, when people are drinking alcohol, and they act out.
Sure.
So when it's your wedding, you don't want to be focused on the safety, and your family wants to focus on the wedding. You want to focus on the wedding. Any kind of event, you don't want to go there and have to be watching your surroundings and wondering kind of if something's going to happen, or, you want to go there, have a good time, as you said, and enjoy and not worry about things. And so if someone was having an event, I would suggest that they consider, getting a security guard or a few to make sure, just to keep a watch so that everybody can enjoy and not have to worry.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant because you're right. We are, most of us are oblivious. My husband is a great watcher, and so he's constantly scanning. In fact, he leads security in our church. But he's a great watcher. But when I'm in any place, I'm like so engaged with conversation, with the venue, with whatever. I'm engaged. I'm not paying attention to the surroundings. So I would be totally oblivious. I'd probably ask the person, "Could you sit down, please? You're being distracting," right? Like I would probably be that person. Totally oblivious. But you know, we want to have safe places. We want to know that when we're out living life, doing the things that we want to do, I mean, you're providing really peace of mind to people and secure environments. And I think that that's a beautiful mission that you can bring into the world. So as people are, considering, different venues, growing their business, all of those types of things, I think that that should be certainly something that they consider. I would love for you to talk to me a little bit about when somebody hires you and they say, "Okay, I've considered it. I've heard her story. She's the one." What does that actually look like? What does your security service look like?
So whenever somebody reaches out to me, or if I connect with somebody who needs security services, the first conversation is, what is the venue? For example, whether that's a building or construction site, or, whatever it is. What does the venue look like? What looking at kind of how many guards they're looking for, or maybe trying to assess how many guards they may need,
Right.
looking at how many hours they need, for example, because like for my business, we have like a 4-hour minimum for security services. So what would be the best time, if it's more like, 6 or 8 or 10 hours, however many, we make sure that we have the best guards that we can to staff those, to ensure the best safety, and then also just making sure to answer any questions that they have about security, because a lot of places, they don't, know too much about security. And
Sure.
so,
Yeah, I wouldn't.
yeah, so they, making sure that they feel comfortable with having people there that are dressed in whatever uniform that they feel comfortable, because sometimes they like more casual, almost like standby people. Sometimes they like in uniform, whether that's, regular security uniform, polo and cargo pants, or they like full armed people. It just kind of depends. But I just want to make sure that anybody who works with us is comfortable with the situation and all of their questions are answered.
Yeah. So if somebody were to have a security need, and let's say something actually happened, how, like, can you tell us, without giving away your trade secrets, of course, but can you tell us a little bit about how do you guys take care of business so that the venue, the event, the whatever can just continue? Like, is there a process of keeping it seamless so it doesn't disrupt? Tell me a little bit about that.
So the kind of our process, if something were to happen, is the main focus is de-escalation. So if someone is acting out, whether that's, alcohol or drug, mental health, or someone is just angry, one thing that we are trained in is de-escalation. And it's kind of like the number one rule of security is
Okay.
like physical force is like last resort, de-escalation is number one.
Okay.
And so people skills. That's, really important for people to be able to have, because, anybody off the street could say, oh, I want to be a security guard for this, but, for to go through the training, especially like level 3 and level 4, you have to do education, learn
Mm.
self-defense, and for the armed roles, you have to go like practice at the shooting range and get qualified. And so making sure that people are able to, directly handle a situation without there being too much going on where they can't handle it, because certain situations can get out of hand really quickly.
Sure.
But if they're just trained in de-escalation, then they're able to control the situation so that it doesn't cause too much elsewhere in to disrupt the event or disrupt the workflow of the business.
Yeah, that's huge. And, I think about so many times people, well, I can just take care of it, right? And you get the wrong person with the wrong attitude trying to handle a situation, and it can just create horrific chaos, right? So tell me, you mentioned mental health and, different things like that, that maybe it's not just somebody coming in with an agenda to harm, but maybe something is triggered, or I'm sure a lot of times things like that happen, right? Or maybe it's an employee that was recently let go, or maybe they're having some issues at home and they are explosive in the workplace. Can you give us some examples of some of those more, I can't really say mild situations, but they're not the normal things that get on the news, but they're still disruptive in environments?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, okay, for example, in the past, working as a security guard at the company that I worked at, there was a lot of employees that were let go because it was such a big company that I worked at, one of them. And so one of the jobs as security guards was to escort them off the property.
Mm.
And so that was something that like people were being explosive or they were being aggressive and different things
Sure.
like that. And so we were trained to be able to handle those kind of situations. So that's kind of one thing. Another example is like whenever working, because sometimes we work downtown, and with downtown, homeless people in Austin, and kind of being on watch for what's going on, but being aware of the scenario, but also with most people, it's a communication issue, like a
Mm.
misunderstanding between two people, most likely. And so one thing that I've learned over the years of doing security is that trying to get both sides of the story and kind of figure out where that gap is, where that miscommunication is.
Mm.
And with a lot of people, by just talking to them like a human, you're able to de-escalate them that way. But for some people, homeless people or people who are, under a certain substance or maybe alcohol, um, there might not be that same level of being able to talk through things. So being able to be with them and try to help them get the support they need without making them feel threatened. And
Sure.
within any scenario, I think that's important to make sure that people are not feeling targeted, because
Right.
if they feel targeted, then they're going to be way more on edge, for example.
Sure. We have that whole fight or flight syndrome will kick in. And if they're already in more of an aggressive state, then they're probably going to kick in on the fight syndrome, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is just a phenomenal and fascinating conversation to me, because there is so much that goes on in the world that we just, again, we're unaware of. And I think it's important to have people, I was going to say warriors, which I think is kind of what you are, that are just on guard, that are watching, to make sure that people are safe, to provide that peace of mind and that security. I see you have your patch on. It proudly displays your beautiful brand, but tell us about the patches.
Mhm. Yeah, so the guards will wear the patches, and it, signifies who they work with.
Mhm.
And my friend, she actually designed the logo, so I love that because it's got that personal connection.
Yeah.
The business name, also has a personal connection to me in multiple ways. But whenever I was looking at getting patches and I was looking at different companies, some patches are just not that pretty. And I think mine is just, I feel like it's professional, but it also is just the logo and everything. It really shows the passion that I put behind my business.
And I think that's a huge thing. Also, when you talk about people being escalated or nervous, right? Sometimes just seeing the big word security in black and white uniform could be also intimidating, right? It could be triggering for some people. So to have something that's professional, that's pretty, but also, hey, we mean business and we're
Mhm,
going to help you, right?
mhm,
I think that's a big deal. Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Well, Aubrey, thank you for sharing today. Can you think of if any parting remarks that you would like to share with people as it relates to creating their own sense of safety and security?
I would say that um, going out in the world, being aware of the surroundings, but trying not to be too weighed down with what's going on in the world around, because I don't really watch the news because it is really stressful and they never report on anything positive. And
Sure.
so I think that there's a lot of people that are living in fear in the world today. And I hope that people are able to still enjoy their lives and go about the world as they can, in a positive way,
Yeah.
and protect each other. Look out for one another, because um, a lot of people are really supportive of each other, but there's also people that are, only out for themselves. And I feel like just being a good person and looking out for one another. So if there is, like, say, a medical emergency or there's a security thing, look out for your neighbor or your friends, keep an eye
Yeah.
out. But also, if people do need security, like, look to any security company and try to just talk to them and see what some possibilities are for what support they can have for their event or their business, to make sure that their customers or clients are feeling safe so they can enjoy their time at whatever establishment they're at.
I love that. In today's world, being aware, being neighborly is bringing back humanity,
Mhm,
right? And that happens when people know that they're supported, when they know that their need for security has been met. And
mhm,
you are out there doing that, my friends.
mhm.
You are out there creating a place for people to know that their need for security is secure. And I think that that is absolutely incredible. So, how can our friends reach out to you?
So we have a website.
Mhm.
It's www.cloverphoenix.com.
Okay.
We also have an email. It's info@cloverphoenix.com.
Okay.
Our phone number is 512-200-2662. Anyone can reach out for a free quote, or to talk to me about their event or venue or business, anything that's going on, whatever questions they have about security. Anybody can feel free to reach out, and I will do my best to answer their questions.
Awesome. I know you will. And your team is going to continue to grow. So we're very excited to see that success. So keep showing up and showing the world that it is a secure
Mhm.
place. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, friends, wow, today's conversation, I hope, brought you some peace and some comfort, knowing that there are amazing people out there that care and that want to make sure that you can have the security that you need to live the life that you are supposed to live. And here at Unbreakable Enterprises, we believe that every single one of us were created on purpose for a purpose. And when we know that our friends at Clover Phoenix Security and Consulting and so many others out in the unbreakable world are showing up every single day, they're giving you a chance to continue living and building your unbreakable life. So until we see you next time, have an awesome